Hello everybody! Today we're gonna take a look on how I made my Bolvar cosplay from WoW. So I started with picking up some wood and started to build the bone structure of my one-to-one mannequin. I want it to be in multiple parts so I can actually put it apart while I'm modeling the silicone suit, and I can actually put it on the mannequin once I'm finished. So the arms, head and waist are detachable. This will help me later on with casting the silicone and the foam parts. I wrapped myself in plastic, put some paper tape over it, and then reinforce it with some duct tape. This will create the mold of me so it will be one-to-one. Then I cut it apart, put it on the bones of the mannequin, and started filling it with expansion foam. I used some duct tape to separate the top from the bottom so the foam doesn't connect, so it will be easily detachable. As you can see, I already filled the top part with the expansion foam and cut the holes so I can reach the screws later. I'm putting a little foam in the headpiece and putting it on the wood frame and sliding it so there will be as little seam as possible. I'm filling the rest of the head and I'm moving on to arms. Just a quick note here, for the actual hands and fingertips I used basic nitrile glove, and I filled the glove with some filler, some plastic filler, and then I slide it over the foam part. Now I can remove the tapes and the plastic. So you can see I'm left with this monstrosity. It obviously needs to be sanded down, and then I applied some plastic filler, same I used for the hands and the fingertips, so it will create the top layer so I can actually use it later. I was left with this spiky finish. It was actually really sharp, that needs to be sanded down as well. And I have very professional tools for this job. Now we're moving on to the actual armor. This is a huge stack of papers covered with patterns. I need to cut them individually out and use them on the EVA sheet. Epic transition. And I just glued the pieces together. Several 100 pieces, actually. It was a lot of pieces, not gonna lie. I use this white EVA foam so I can have LEDs beneath it, so it will be see-through and I can actually make the effects. There were actually so many pieces that I had to put it together in the paper form so I can actually know which parts go where to cut angles, and so on. Somewhere around here I will put schematics of the patterns so you can see it in a big picture of how it all fits together. I try to do it as clearly as possible. The individual pieces actually have numbers of them. They should match. I believe there are some cases they don't match. It was because of the 3D model and how I cut it apart, but in the most cases it should match. Then I did some more of a gluing with contact cement and actually sanded through some parts to make details. Now we're making some spikes and putting them on the shoulder piece. Now we're moving on to foam clay, making these organic looking shapes, and I added some thinner EVA to make some of more details. These leather punches are here to help me make perfect circles as the reference for some more of the details. I also used some white foam clay in the same way I used the white EVA, so I can put LEDs underneath it and it will shine through. I went with Hexplex for the primer, and I did like the usual about 3 layers. I used Hexplex because it's transparent, so it wouldn't block the LEDs afterward. Then I did the usual. I started with black paint as the base layer, then moved on to silver. I did some black wash as well, and I did some finishing touches with airbrush as well. And then I started sculpting. I needed something to make this texture of the burnt skin. So I took a piece of wood, did a little cast, silicone cast, and used it as a stamp. So I just heated up the clay and pressed it against the monster clay, and it created this texture. After that, I took a bunch of fiberglass, huge amounts of resin, and started to make 2-piece molds of everything. I started with the head. I actually casted the head as well with some foam. I then took the foam head, put it on the body part, and started sculpting the rest of the body. I did this separately because it was more convenient for me when I was sculpting the head. To make it easier for myself, I took some aluminum foil and used it as a base of the body, so I don't have to use that much of the clay. I ended up needing about 6 packages of monster clay. I was using hard monster clay because it holds really well. I tried the soft versions, but I don't really like them. Just a quick fit set to see if I have the proportions right, and then created the rest of the molds. The casting itself I did in 2 parts. When I had the molds in 2 parts, I started brushing the silicone into the parts. It was just a clear silicone with no added pigment, so it will be like see-through for the LEDs, obviously. And after many layers of the silicone, I finally closed it up with the mannequin inside, and I filled the rest of the space between the silicone and the mold and the mannequin with expanding foam from Smooth On. I had to sacrifice my shear in the process. Then it was time to use some colors. I used just a silicone base with some silver pigment and start doing multiple layers so it will be covered well. I did this with the rest of the body as well, but I left the cracks unpainted. Those are the parts when I will put LEDs underneath it. And we're pretty much done. Here is the final result.